the Chappiness Guy. Welcome to today's episode of Vestibular Talks. We have an amazing guest. Her name is Era, also known as the Vestibular Guru. Not a real guru though, that's just her name. But she's here with us today to share her journey through going through vestibular migraines, how she was diagnosed, how she lived prior to the vestibular migraines, how she's living now with vestibular migraines, and what the future holds for her uh, recovering and healing from vestibular migraines. So remember to like, share, and subscribe. And remember, find your happiness, guys. All right, Era, we're live.
Hi.
The vestibular guru is in the house. How are you
Not really
today?
a guru, but it's just my name.
Just the nickname. I know. How are you doing today? How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. So, as we talked about, I waited 8 months to see a neurologist,
Mhm.
and I finally saw him the other day, and we have a new plan in place. So I am weaning off of nortriptyline and looking at a possible better option for me that would be a better fit. So I feel good, but I'm starting to go back to where I was a little bit in the beginning, but I have better control of it now. It
Okay.
doesn't scare me as much as it used
Good.
to.
Yes, that's good. That's good. Is that
Yeah.
you're more confident about it. Era, you mind telling us a little bit about yourself before the chronic attack, the chronic episode, and then when it happened? How was that?
So before the chronic episode, I got what I think was some kind of virus. I was going about my life normal. I was working, I was socializing, I was doing everything like I was on top of the world actually at that point. And I noticed that I had in my ears, it felt like a balloon was inflating in my ears. And I didn't feel dizzy, but I was like, I've never felt that before. Like, what is that? And then about a week later, the dizziness set in, but it was such a minor dizziness that it didn't bother me. I was able to I was able to go about my life. I was able to do everything as normal, but it was just persistent and it was there. Then the feeling of walking like on marshmallow, like the spongy feeling, that started. And then I was like, this isn't going away. Like what's going on? And then I thought, I had had vertigo in the past, but it had always gone away. And I had had migraine headaches in the past also. And all of this stuff was all of this stuff in the past was very quick, like 24 hours, like it would go away. And I
Okay.
had seen a doctor before and they told me that I was allergic to fruit, or they had told me I was allergic to a bunch of stuff. So I didn't think much of it. Um, and then finally I went to see a chiropractor, and the chiropractor told me that I had some like disc out of place and that like one foot was longer than the other. I don't know what they
Yeah.
always like, it's the
Yeah.
same
They
thing
always.
that they always tell you. So he did an adjustment and I went home and I felt exactly the same. And he had said, if you don't feel relief from this after 24 hours, you need to go to a doctor. So I went to my first of many doctors, and I went in there. I was hysterical. I mean, I was crying. I was like, I don't know what's wrong. I thought I had had a brain tumor. Like
Mhm.
everybody goes through that. I thought it could be a brain tumor, MS. Like I
Yes.
didn't know. And he basically gaslighted me and was like, you have anxiety because of, he wanted to talk about like childhood trauma, and he wanted to, like, he spent a long time with me talking about basically like all of this stuff that had nothing to do with the way I was feeling. And I was
Mhm.
like, okay, yeah, that's great. And I've gone through all of the therapy for that. And guess what? Like, that has nothing to do with this. And
Yes.
so he gave me prednisone and said, oh, and nose spray, Afrin nose spray, because he thought that there could be like an allergy element. So then
Yes.
about 3 days after that happened, I got very, very, very sick on Thanksgiving. Like one second I was fine, and then the next second I was like coughing, I was sneezing, I had like my nose was running, I was constantly having to blow my nose. It was like I came down with the flu in a split second. It was the strangest thing.
Yeah.
So our friends left and left our house. The next day I woke up, I was fine again. And then the dizziness came back, and it was like, it was more at that time after I healed from this weird Thanksgiving sickness. So then I became more and more concerned. So then I went to my GP's office, my general doctor. I went into her office. I didn't have an appointment. I didn't call or anything. I just walked into her office, hysterical again. And I said, I think I have a brain tumor and I need you to help me right now. And this has nothing to do with my anxiety or childhood trauma or anything. This is a very real thing that's happening to me right now. And she was like, okay, let's get a CT scan. So she ordered me a CT scan that day, and I got the results that day. Everything came back normal. So it was very quick. And that's the advantage of living in a small town. Not great medical care, but I can get everything done very quickly.
Yeah.
Yes. So they told me, like, she said, you're fine. There's like, your brain scan's completely clear. Your ears are clear. Your sinuses are clear. Your neck looks good. So she said to take meclizine 4 times a day. 4 times a day. Yeah. So I said, okay, that's fine. My aunt, who is like me also, she takes meclizine also. So I was like, okay, like I kind of knew what it was. And she was like, take meclizine 4 times a day because you have fluid behind your ear, and that'll dry everything out and you'll be fine. So by Christmas time and the holiday time, I was 100%. I had absolutely no symptoms whatsoever. I was completely fine. I had healed, and I thought this was over. And come January 5th, I was in my house and I was doing laundry, and in a split second, I fell to the ground. Like, it was like something was inside my ear and it pulled me to the ground. It wasn't like a dramatic collapse or anything. It was like, it pulled me to the ground, and I immediately started vomiting. I called my husband, who was still in the car, he was like going somewhere, but he was still close by. And I said, you have to come back. I've fallen to the floor. I don't know what's wrong. I was just vomiting and vomiting and vomiting. And I couldn't, like, if I stood up or like everything was off. Like the whole world was different at that point. So I was in the house, and I was like, I really don't want to go in an ambulance, like, because like in the United States, the cost of an ambulance is crazy. So I was like, I really don't want to do this. I really, really don't want to do that. And then finally the heart palpitations started. So I was like, we're going to have to call like the ambulance. So we called the ambulance. They came, they checked me out. They said, you're fine. Do you want to go to the hospital? I was like, yeah, of course I do. Like, what do you mean? Of course. Like, this is not fine, you know? So I went to the hospital, and they told me that I had elevated heart, but it was nothing big. This was sort of like January time. So it was the beginning of Corona. They gave me a chest x-ray. They told me that everything looked fine. I had thought maybe stroke, like, they're like, no, you don't, it's nothing, like, you're fine. I was like, what do you mean? Like, I was so angry, because I was like, how can you say to me that I'm okay? Because I thought that, like, I looked horrible. Like, I mean, I thought that I showed up to the place, like a mess. Like, I didn't even have shoes on. Like, I mean, it was crazy. So they're like, no, you're fine. The emergency room doctor said, you have no potassium. They did a ton of blood work, and they said all my blood work was fine. But he said, you have no potassium, you're dehydrated, and you probably have allergies. So he gave me some Claritin, like allergy medication. and some potassium pills. And I went home and I felt exactly the same the next day and the next day and the next day. And I didn't recover from that. So I finally went to an ENT, because you think it's in your ear. Everything you think is happening inside your ear. And the ENT basically said that I am I was above normal for everything in my age range. He's like, you're like, everything is above normal, you're, and they had looked at my eyes also. They had recommended I look at my eyes. They said, your eyesight is above normal for somebody like in your age range. Your hearing is above normal for somebody in your age range. Everything is fine. And he said, but I know what this is. He said, this is called vestibular migraine. And I was like, you've lost it. There's no way. Like, what are you even talking? Yeah, like what? And I think I actually said that to him. And I was like, there's absolutely, like, I knew kind of what that was. Like, I had heard of it, and a friend of mine had actually suggested that as a diagnosis. And I was like, there's no, like, no, like, you
can grasp.
Like, no, there's no way. Like, I don't have a headache. I was like, I thought that what was going to happen, they would just give me some ear surgery, put some tubes in my ears, drain some fluid, and I would be good. That's what I had created in my mind as the scenario, and it did not go like that. So he was like, I don't treat this. And he's like, we have one doctor in this entire region that treats this, and it's very hard to get in. It can take months to wait to get in. He said, so I can try to start treating this with you. So I said, all right, cool, let's go ahead. So that's whenever I started taking nortriptyline and I started taking Xanax. And the Xanax was wonderful because it got rid of it was like your 100%, And then I realized that was not that wasn't good, because I come from a long line of addiction, and I was like, this isn't a safe road for me to go down.
Very addictive.
Yeah. So they recommended I take Valium, because you can take Valium helps with muscular stuff also, and you can take less of it and have a longer, it has a longer half-life to it. So you can take less and still have a good effect. So I was like, okay, fine. So I was taking the nortriptyline and I was taking the Valium. Then I cut the Valium out and took just the nortriptyline. And now I am at about, every day I'm between 70 and 90%. I don't have days anymore where and that's only been this way for 6 weeks. About 6 weeks ago, we moved from where we bought a whole new house because of this crazy illness, because the old house we were living in was not easy for me to move around in. So we bought a whole new house, came to this house. The day we moved, I thought I was going to die again, because it was like I was back to square one. And I think it was the stress of that. And now that I've been in this house for about 6 weeks, a little over 6 weeks, I am I'm feeling so much better.
Much better.
And yeah.
Era, how long have you been in the nortriptyline? Has it been many months or just weeks?
Yes. So I've been taking since January 13th. I've been taking the nortriptyline.
Okay, so
75 milligrams per day.
7 months. Probably 7 months. And any side effects you notice?
Yeah, so I've gained 25 pounds, which is, for me, anybody who watches this that may know me knows that there has never been a period in my life where I've gained 25 pounds in such a short period of time. I've always been fairly thin. So that I don't like that. That bothers me, but I have to get over that and just understand that things will level off
It's part of it. It's part of it. It's a common side effect. But again, as I said before we started recording, you look good. Yeah. So you don't feel self-conscious, or don't feel don't feel that like, oh, I'm gaining weight. Like you gain
Yeah.
weight from what I've seen in your pictures and from what you're saying, but you look good. Like you
Yeah.
still look healthy. You still at a healthy weight.
Yes. Well, I was probably a little too thin to start, like, whenever I started this. So, like, putting on a few pounds wasn't bad, but now my clothes don't fit. So I'm like, oh, now this is getting like bad. So I the nortriptyline, because I took the nortriptyline and the benzos all at the same time, it's hard for me to know what was the side effect of which. And because I was taking so much nortriptyline from the beginning, when I first started the nortriptyline, I was also taking a steroid taper. So that day, January 13th, I started taking Xanax, nortriptyline, and a steroid taper all at the same time. So I literally felt, if you want to talk about feeling crazy, like, that's whenever you're like, I'm talking to myself, and this time I've lost it. Like, you can count me out because I'm done. That's when I thought it was over.
Something that you mentioned and you keep mentioning throughout your journey, it's people or these doctors keep referring to allergies. Interesting enough, I've never suffered from allergies, but since this vestibular migraine thing started chronically for me, I've been suffering from allergies. And they prescribed me a nasal spray because my ears, like you said, it was like a balloon was inside of them, like pressure. And I could hear my voice. I would talk and I hear like my voice echoing in my ears. So I used this nasal spray and it took that away. From reading the Victory Over Vestibular Migraines book, it also says there is a link between allergies and vestibular migraines. Do you feel that could be a component on what's happening to you, that there could be an actual allergy adding into whatever else is causing the vestibular migraines? The allergies themselves could be adding to some symptoms?
Yes, I feel like there is a big allergy component to this, and I feel like I've had this my whole life. So I have had I've had seasonal allergies. I've had very serious allergies to mold, mildew, things like that. And now I look back at my life and I relate that all back to migraine activity. That all of that like triggered migraine activity. Whenever I'm having like a vestibular attack or even like a migraine attack, my eyes get so watery and so dry, and so it's hard to explain, like, they're dry and watery all at the same time, but it's like the watery is coming from under here and the dryness is like on the actual eyeball, and then I can itch them till they're raw. So I feel like there is definitely an allergy component. And I live in the South. It's very hot. It's very humid all year round. I've lived in the South most of my adult life. So between Miami and living in Charleston, I've been exposed obviously to a lot of mold. Like, you can't escape it, like, anywhere you go. So I think that is a big contributor to this, and I think that has been with me for a long time.
Speaking of that has been with you for a long time, since childhood or since forever, I watched your episode Vestibular Warrior Talks, where you brilliantly explain the symptoms or the migraine activity from before the chronic episode. And you were saying that it was hard for you to watch 3D movies, to move backwards, and anything that was riding like a train or a car or anything that was moving backwards. You explain a lot of others, the restless leg syndrome. And when you were describing all these things, I'm like, check. I've had all of those when I was younger as well. So I do agree that you are onto something. This could have been happening all along at a lower degree, and then suddenly something just triggers the big episode.
So For my whole life, I've had severe motion sickness. I cannot ride in the back of a car. I'm the only person I think that sits in the front seat of a cab. Like when you go in a taxi, I'm like, look, I don't want to throw up, so let me sit in the front. If I get drunk, it's vomit, like so much vomit. Um, there's just, now that I look back at like everything that I'm going through now, and I'm like, hold on, some of this has been with me for a lot longer than I'm realizing. And this has actually been an issue my whole life, and I didn't know what to call it. And I was considered a hypochondriac, like, because I always thought there was something wrong with me. So they're like, oh, she's crazy. She's just a hypochondriac. No, there was something wrong with me. It just hadn't come to the surface. And talking to my neurologist the other day, there's a couple of theories of why it comes to the surface the way that it does. And that can be through a virus. So like Epstein-Barr, I know Medical Medium talks a lot about, strep, Epstein-Barr, things like that are active in your body for a long time, and that can trigger that.
Yeah.
A stressful life event can
Yeah.
also bring that. So if you have like a divorce or a breakdown or something like that, that can
Death
then,
alone.
yeah, bring all of that to the surface. And then just, you get to an age, like especially in women, where hormones start to change, and then that can bring things to the surface.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's a lot of different theories out there on why this comes to the surface the way that it does. I choose to believe that I think that this is some kind of virus that I've had for a very long time. And I feel like I'm treating this as if this is something that's inside of me that I need to get out. Like I need to, like it needs to get out of me, and I need to heal it. With the diagnosis of triple PD, I know that I will probably, to some degree, have this for the rest of my life, and I'm okay with that, because through this, I've met so many wonderful people, and I've learned so much about myself, and I've really learned my true strength in life. And so I'm okay with that. Like, I'm okay with where I'm at, because I'm actually a better person than I used to be.
Okay, a couple of things. So
Yeah.
the virus concept of medical medium, are you doing any of the protocols to cleanse? Like, are you doing any of the like the celery juice, or the
Yeah.
smoothie, clean stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that? And
Yeah.
have you feel any relief from it?
Yeah. So there's a couple of different things that I do. I drink celery juice every morning on an empty stomach, and then I wait like a half an hour to an hour to eat something. And then I also do like some of his smoothie protocols. I haven't done any of the cleanses yet, and I don't think that I am until I'm finished weaning off of the medication, because it's like, too much at once.
Too much?
I don't want to have a drop attack again. So I do the smoothies, and I also I've also added a lot more fruit into my diet. So, because I never ate fruit before, because fruit makes you fat. That was,
Sugar.
So I have added a lot more fruit into my diet. And I'm eating a lot, I'm eating a lot cleaner. Before this all started, I was 100% plant-based, totally vegan, but I wasn't a healthy vegan, because French fries and beer are vegan, so like, there, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of like unhealthy vegan food, like a lot of meat replacements and a lot
Yeah.
of these nutritional yeast and things like this. And these are things that are very, very, very bad for you.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it's like some of that's misleading. I've also read a lot about do you know the Stanton migraine protocols? Do you know what that is? Angela Stanton.
No.
Okay, so she wrote a book basically about how to cure any type of migraine. And I know
Okay.
somebody that it has worked for. She is 100%. She was vestibular just like us, and she's now at 100%. And it's about electrolytes and eating beef and eating. It's hard to explain because it's a very complicated. It's a very complicated program. You have to have blood work done, and you have to test your glucose levels. But what I have found through all of the things that I've read and all the things that I've studied is that electrolytes, particularly magnesium and potassium, are a common thread amongst everybody who has migraine activities, that we are deficient in some way of these electrolytes. So I don't actually have the bottle with me, but I'm using it's drops of high strength electrolytes, and I'm using that as a preventative, but also for like acute attacks. Like if I feel something happening, I up my amount of
The dosage.
electrolytes.
Yeah,
Huge
and you
change.
seem, and it's working. Like you seem a difference.
Yes, I see a huge difference in that. It's helping me with weaning off the medication, because when you're taking these high doses of antidepressants and then you suddenly sort of stop taking them, things get a little weird.
Yeah, they change your
Yeah,
brain chemistry.
yeah, things get strange again. So that's really helping me. It's a little controversial because it's high in sodium.
Mm.
Um, and I know that with the Heal Your Headache diet, he's like low
Yeah,
salt, low salt, low salt.
I,
But
I follow that diet. Yeah.
yeah, that diet, I have a lot to say that I won't say here about that diet. But I, you know, I look more for things that are going to heal you. And I feel like that book and that diet is a little old fashioned.
Yes. So that's why I followed that diet with the modifications of the medical medium attached
Yes.
to it. So I it's like my baseline, but I modify it with the medical medium to make it more clean. Like I don't need pork, I don't need corn, I don't need
Yeah.
gluten. So I merge both of them together to make it more holistic.
Yes. And so that's exactly what I'm doing, along with the electrolyte stuff. And I just think that everybody is different, and I don't think that one certain thing is going to work for everybody. The theory that all of our bodies work in the same way, I don't co-sign that at all. Like, we're all different. We all have different chemistry. So the biggest thing I think for people is to really look at all of these different plans, because when you have any type of vestibular disorder, it is so hard to treat this. I stress so much that this cannot be treated like pain. This cannot
No.
be treated like cancer. There is no chemotherapy. There is no surgery. There is no pain pill. There is no magic pill. There is a magic pill. It's called Valium, but that you don't want to do that, because that
Yeah,
causes a lot of rebound.
yeah.
When you finally stop taking it, you go way worse than what you were at. So, I think people really need to read up on a lot of these things, go to the library and go online, talk to people online, and find out what resonates with you the most. But the one thing that I can stress is you have to have a complete lifestyle change, and
Yeah,
you have to. It's not an option. I thought in the beginning that, like, whenever I had my collapse, that I was just going to be here for like 2 weeks. It's going to take 2 weeks off, and I was just going to go back to it. And that's not how this is going to go down. Like, it's going to be a complete lifestyle change. Your relationships will change. Your job will change. Everything is going to change. And it's not a bad thing, because what happens is people realize that these are things that needed to be addressed for a long time.
yes.
And that's how I feel, because I ignored my health. I ignored a lot of things in my life. And now I'm forced to address myself. I'm forced to address what's going on. And that has been incredibly healing in itself.
And I can tell that you're a strong woman. You're very
Mm-hmm.
confident. You are, like you mentioned, you were on top of the world. You're very. I want to say, like, I bet you were probably, correct me if I'm wrong, but I bet you were probably very accomplished, very successful, and you were probably, people will look up to you as a role model. People were probably like, wow, like Era does so much. We want to be like her. When this hit you, life changed because now you go from being the alpha person to
Mm-hmm.
having to let someone take care of you, having to depend on the becoming vulnerable. How has that been for you? Because even though you probably had to be vulnerable, you're still doing a lot. You're still doing things to motivate other people, doing the vestibular warrior talks. You're doing a fundraiser for Lebanon. So how do you manage being vulnerable but still being of service to the community?
So, I mean, it's a balance, and every single day is different because anybody with a vestibular disorder knows you don't know the person you're going to be when you wake up in the morning. You don't know what is going to happen. I went through a very long period of grief, not a long period, but I went through a few months of just absolute utter grief that I was like, I can't, like, what am, how, I didn't know what was going to happen to me. Like, I
Yeah.
didn't know if I would ever get better. I thought that the only way to get through this was suicide. And, so many people go through that. And I really
Yes.
mourned the person that I was. And I still do a little bit because I'm very high energy. I like to party. I like nightclubs. I like concerts. I like social events and all of those things. And right now I can't, well, nobody can do anything because we got the coronavirus.
Yeah.
So, you know, um, but still, whenever the coronavirus is over, I'm still here and you're still here in this situation. So it's difficult, but I found that, filling my time where I can literally sit in my bed and I can talk with people and I can, become an ambassador for Veda and, start these support groups and get involved with other women who are having like going through this horrible, unimaginable disease. And then, looking at what's going on in the world, my husband's Lebanese and my neurologist is Lebanese also, and like getting involved in that. I feel like this is fulfilling me in a different
A
way.
purpose.
Yeah, it's fulfilling me so much more than what I was doing with my life before. And
Yeah.
it feels good to be where I am now because there's so much more meaning in it. Because it takes so much strength, it takes so much more strength to get to do anything. To do
Yeah.
anything, it takes
It's
so
true.
much strength. So you put so much love and so much care and so much gratitude into everything that you do that it actually has so much more meaning now.
It's
If
true.
that makes sense,
It does. It does. Era, when we're talking about, for example, symptoms,
Hmm.
my most bothersome symptom is the dizziness. Like I don't
Hmm.
like it at all. A lot of people tell me that they handle the dizziness, but what they don't like is the derealization. And I said, the derealization doesn't bother me much because I use it to my advantage. I use it to work out harder,
Hmm.
to push myself to do things that I don't really want to do because you're in like automatic mode. You're like in a
Yeah.
dream-like state. So,
Hmm.
so I push myself to do things that I don't like to do when I'm in auto
Derealization.
mode.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is it for you? What is the most bothersome symptom for you? When if you could, and the visual disturbances. I don't like them either. I like looking at the screen is probably as hard as for you as it is for me
Yeah.
because any movement, any lights, it kind of like throws you off.
Yeah.
So, what is it for you? What's the most bothersome
The
symptom?
most bothersome symptom for me is whenever I get dizzy, I get a pressure that comes along right in here and it goes all the way down my back. And I also get a numbness in my hands and my feet. And
Okay.
so this is normal. They call, like, I was at the neurologist 2 days ago and I sometimes get numbness around my mouth. And that's when I really thought I had MS. I was like, okay, well, this is multiple
Yeah.
sclerosis,
Yeah.
but it's not. So the worst thing for me is the dizziness with the numbness and the tingling.
Okay.
Derealization, I have had that since I was a child, and I didn't
Yeah.
know what to call it, and I never told anybody about it because it was so crazy. It was so
It
crazy.
is.
Like I could lay in bed and literally feel like I'm floating outside of the room around,
That's
like,
it.
I mean, it's
Yes.
the
Out
craziest.
of body
I,
experience. Yeah.
I was having out of body experiences from as long as I can remember. And it got to a point where I was able to even control it.
Whoa.
Yeah, I know. So that's how advanced the derealization. So the derealization um, doesn't bother me that much, like feeling spaced out or whatever. But it's whenever I do start to get dizzy and I start to feel that pressure. And the only way to relieve that is if I can, like, I have to put my head down on something. I can still remain sitting. I just have to, like, put my head down. I have to have my head resting on something, and then that will sort of take it away. Whenever I'm having an acute attack, the pulling, like where you feel like you're being pulled to the ground, or you feel like your muscles are are gonna atrophy, like where you're just gonna like give out on yourself, that that is scary. And that I haven't had that for a while, but I know that I will probably have it again at some point. And that scares me a lot, because whenever I do drop and I have, like, it's vomit immediately. So I'm really hoping that doesn't happen in public, you know, that
Well, I'm sure people will be compassionate. I'm not sure. Like, I don't think anybody will judge me like, oh, what's happening to
I know, but during the coronavirus, they're going to be like, oh my God, don't touch her,
you?
you know, get
Got it.
away.
Yeah.
Um,
Era,
no,
do you ever get, I don't know, I get it a lot that things seem tilted. And
yeah.
when something is actually inclined, if I look at it for too long, it bothers me because it makes me feel like I'm tilting with it. Like if the roof
Yeah.
is inclined, if the house is inclined, I start to obsess with how everything is tilted to the right. So like that's
So
another.
mine is tilted to the right. I have the tilting to the right also. And
Okay.
I only have that really whenever I'm outside. So if I'm like outside on the sidewalk and I'm walking the dog and I'm like trying to look down the street and I'm trying to like make sense of what is like what's happening. And
Uh,
there was one occasion that I was walking down the street and the street was tilting, the sidewalk started to tilt, and there was a fountain right next to it. And I thought, oh my God, I had to sit down on the grass and I said, you need to take the dog and put it in the car and come back and get me because I can't right
too
now. Like
much. It's too overwhelming.
I can't make sense, like my brain can't make sense of like this fountain. And I had been to this place 1,000 times, but I was like, I can't make sense of this right now. Like I need to remove myself from
That
this situation.
that happened to me at the beginning in the shower. Taking a shower,
Yes.
it
Oh
will
God,
make
the
it will make
shower.
zero sense in the shower. Like, you feel in the water, you feel the droplets, the curtain is moving, and you're like, holy crap! Like
Yeah.
this is like I need to get out of the shower.
So the shower so in the beginning, we were living in the house where I didn't have a bathtub. So I would shower. I would always have to make sure my husband was in the house with me, like whenever I was showering. But I would get in the shower by myself and I would try to turn the lights down like real low. So I took a lot of light bulbs out and I have like one light bulb and I tried to keep it as dark as possible. And I had to sit on the floor of the shower, like just sit on the floor because I was like, this is all too much. It's like everything is
It makes
too
no sense.
much.
Yeah.
I could not do it. And I would have, like, if I were to try to wash my face in the shower, my husband would have to come and hold my hand while I was standing there, because whenever you close your eyes, you feel like, you know,
Yeah.
your eyes are completely dependent on your balance. So
Yeah.
the second you
Vestibular
close
system.
your eyes, things go crazy when you close your eyes. Even for me now, like, and that's anybody who's dealing with that, when you go in for your neurological exam, they're going to ask you to stand up and you're going to close your eyes and they're going to try and move you all over the place and it's going to feel horrible. So I had, you know, a hard time keeping my eyes closed and trying to handle things with my eyes closed. I also have sometimes, if I'm having an attack, a lot of problems with like hand-eye coordination. So like the first time I noticed that this was a problem was I went to go put makeup on and I had a mascara and I was like trying to put it to my eye, but I couldn't
Align.
I couldn't like get it right. Like I couldn't do it. And I was like, why can't I do it? And I was like, my hand was shaking and I was like, why can't I do this? And then if I'm like cooking and I'm trying to cut something, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm probably going to cut a finger off because I'm so like,
Yeah. No, I follow you.
this is like, I'm so off, you know? So anybody out there who's dealing with that, don't feel crazy. Like this is
This is normal for us.
this is normal. And one thing that my ENT told me, and my ENT, I'm very thankful for him because I was able to figure out relatively quickly what was wrong with me. I didn't go years or months or whatever, like a lot of people do. Like they'll
Yeah.
go 3-4 years and have no idea what's wrong with them. I'm very thankful for my ENT. And he told me, he really broke it down and he said, you know what? The symptoms of this are a lot scarier than what the disease actually is.
Yeah.
And
That's
it's very true. Like,
yeah.
you don't have anything that fundamentally wrong with you. Like, you're fine. But the symptoms of it are the part that's scary. So I
Intriguing.
remind myself that a lot of times. I'm like, okay, these are just the symptoms. And these are just the symptoms that are scary. And it's going to be okay because it's not going to kill me. Like, this isn't that I might feel like this for a little while, but you can, like, most people do heal, you know?
Yeah.
And talking to people and connecting with other people that have this is so incredibly important. And I went on at first, I don't have a Facebook page, but my husband does, and we joined the Facebook account, the Vestibular Migraine Support account. And people are probably not going to like what I say about this, but it was almost like such a negative space where
Yeah.
it was like a competition of who was sicker, you
People
know?
follow into their.
It wasn't good. And I found that the people on Instagram were much more like, okay, like, let's get to the bottom of this. Yeah, and they were way nicer about it, and it wasn't like, oh my God, I've been like this for 10 years with no relief. Like,
And you develop such a close sisterhood with Laura, Ashley, and Emily. Like you
yeah,
guys uh, are very supportive of each other and encouraging and motivating to others that are watching
yes,
your show. So it's great. You guys are doing great with that.
sure. And, you know, we started that because we had started having weekly telephone calls with each other as a support group, just for each other. And then we were like, we're talking about some pretty serious stuff here that people really could relate to. So then we started to record this and then put it up, and we got so much like wonderful feedback, back from this, that we were like, well, we really need to continue doing,
Yeah.
continue doing this, and, making people heard, because it's
It's
it's great. This is so crazy. Like, even my husband has gotten into this. He's doing all the diet stuff with me. He's doing all of the things. He's doing everything with me. And I am I cannot tell you how thankful I am to have the people that I have in my life. And I know not everybody has that. And if you don't have that, you can find me, like, and I will be that support for you. And I've done that for other people. And there's a lot of nice people out there, and it's so unimaginable. Like, and I have a hard time explaining this to friends and family. Like, after my neurologist appointment, I had called my cousin and I had told him, what had happened. He's like, so you don't feel any better and there's no surgery? I'm like, what? No, this is like, I was like, no, there's no surgery. There's no pills. There's like medication modification, and then there's physical therapy, and that's it.
Yeah, it's a whole journey.
People are very confused by me, like in my regular life.
But it helps you. It helps you weed out who really is a friend and who really isn't.
Yes.
Because you learn to differentiate who was there for you when you were at the top of the world and who's there for you at all times. So it's
sure, and that is a big thing. And Laura and Ashley and I are going to eventually talk about relationships and how, the relationships that we have had to say goodbye to. And, I've had to really take stock into, had to take stock into every single person that comes into my life. And you don't have to understand what's going on, but you need to be sympathetic and supportive of the situation, and know that maybe you don't understand, but it's still very real. Like, this is still very real. This is still happening. And I've had to say goodbye to family. That's hard, but you got to do it. You have to say goodbye to friends. You have to say goodbye to a lot of things, and that's okay, because after you get to a point where you start to feel better, it becomes easier, and you feel so much better about, like, I don't have this person in my life anymore, and I'm so thankful that I don't, because I may not be where I am right now if they were here.
It's very true. What does the future hold for Era now?
So for me, I'm an ambassador for Vita, and what I'm looking to do is, when the coronavirus sort of settles down and everything, I want to start working with local media where I live and start getting this out, like doing little news clippets here and there. My husband is pretty well connected in the community that we live in. So I want to, really, like, if you're, let the local community know if you're dizzy and it's going on for a long time, you might want to get this checked out. It's not scary. Like, we can figure this out. And also, advocating for that migraine isn't just a headache, and that there's a lot of different types of migraine, and that you can have a migraine and never have a headache. And that I really want to try to get out into my local community. I also want to get involved with more support groups, especially where I live. And I want to include people that don't have just vestibular migraine, but also Meniere's disease, and some people who also have post-concussion disorders, because they go through way worse than what we do. And then, right now it's one day at a time, it's 1 week at a time, it's 1 month at a time, and we just have to see how it goes. Right now we have a pretty good wellness plan in action of, with this medication and what we're going to do. And then we'll see where we go from there. And it's, I try not to put too much pressure on what is the future going to hold? Am I going to be this big, powerful, successful person? It's just more like one day at a time. one
Yeah.
thing at a time, and taking life slower. I'm a pretty fast track person. So now I'm like, life can be slower and that's okay. And, I just want to keep advocating. And I really feel like, in a weird way, I feel like this has happened to me for a reason, because I am not scared to talk about what I went through and how scary it was, and how I really I went to my husband and I said, if this doesn't get better, you have to let me take control of my own life, and I want you to find another woman that can take care of our dogs and that can take care of you. And I'm not scared to talk about these things, and I want people to know it's okay. It's okay
Yes.
to feel like that,
Yes.
because it's
Real.
it's very real. It is so real.
Era, where can people find you?
Okay, so I am on Instagram at Vestibular Guru, and I'm also on the Vita website under their ambassadors. I don't have Facebook or Twitter right now.
Mhm.
I can also be found on the Vestibular Warriors YouTube channel. We've done a lot of videos where we talk about symptoms, we talk about our work life and our professional life, and we've talked about a lot of different things, and that's where you can find me. Is there any place else? No, not right now. I'm thinking of maybe writing a book about this, and writing about my experience, through my childhood, and like to where I got now, because I feel like it's just so in depth, and there's so much there that that it needs to be put out there, and really talk
May-
about like the deep rooted stuff that happened as a child to now and
Yeah, maybe
further.
even having a podcast because you're really well spoken. So having a podcast will be good.
Yeah, I'm not very good with technology, and my husband is he's great with technology and he knows how to do all of that. So we've talked about that. So maybe a
Yeah, yeah.
podcast. Maybe we'll talk about that. He really also wants to get involved also about, being a support person to a person that has a vestibular disorder, because I think I've heard some bad stories, like that husband and wives are like, what, you're not better, like what, like you're not like you can't be serious.
Fortunate.
And
Yes.
he's talked about like even putting something together to be like, okay, like this is what's happening for them and this is what you can do to help support them. And he's so passionate about that. Like he does the celery juice with me, he's doing the diet with me. I mean, he's read all these books also. He goes into the doctor's appointments and asks questions for me, because the brain fog, you don't remember
Yep.
everything. And um so we've talked about doing some stuff together like that, you
And
just
and if he's up to it, maybe in the future I can interview him to see the perspective of
absolutely.
an actual partner of a support person to see how they view dealing with a condition like this. So
And I
yeah, for sure.
absolutely recommend that you do, because because the coronavirus happened in like in between January and March, I was at home, but then whenever he was at home with me 24/7 for like 6 weeks or even longer, I think, he really observed what happened, and he
Mhm.
really observed like how much it takes to like for me to do anything, like even
Yeah,
to shower, like for me to shower and like to brush my hair, and like like that can take a whole day.
yeah.
So I highly recommend you talk to him at some point,
I,
and
I would love that. Yes.
yeah, and talk about what partners go through.
Yeah. All right, Era, one last piece of advice for the people that are viewing the show. Anything that you'd like to say to them, people that are struggling?
That don't give up hope, that if I can go from the person that could barely walk and that was suicidal and thought that this was never going to end, to the person that I am now, there is hope for anybody. I promise you, there is hope for anybody. If you go into a doctor's appointment and you don't like what that doctor says, walk out, leave, go to a different doctor. Don't stop advocating for yourself. This is your life, and you can get your life back. Connect with other people. Go on to Instagram, go on to Facebook, there's so much support out there. Read or research these books, Medical Medium, Heal Your Headache, Stanton Migraine Protocols. Find what resonates with you, and go with that. Start small, work up, and work up to the bigger stuff.
Bigger stuff, yeah. No, thank you, Era, and thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us, and I really appreciate it. And we wish you the best in this new transition with the new medication, with the new cleansing process, to see you keep improving. So keep us updated.
Yeah, no, and I'll always keep people updated on what I'm doing, and like what I'm doing next and how it's going. Right now I feel a little crazy because the weaning off the medication makes you a little.
That takes a lot.
It takes a lot, but you know what? I'm not scared anymore. I used to be very scared, but I'm not as scared as I was. So I know I can get through this now.
You're strong, and you got us. We're rallying behind you, so you're
great. Good. Oh, I thank you so much. It really means so much to me. All of the love and the support that everybody gives.
All right, Ada, and we'll chat again soon, I hope.
Oh, of course, yes.
All right, have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.